Now we're going to take a look at Lab 21. That is the second lab for Module 13, and we are looking at Exercise 28, which you can also find in the lab manual if you turn to page 197. And specifically, we'll be looking at contour lines. So you should already be relatively familiar with contour lines, as we have talked a lot about isolines. So we've done a couple labs already where we've dealt with isolines. We've looked at isotherms, we've looked at isobars, that's looking at temperature as well as atmospheric pressure gradients. And so really, again, an isoline are these lines that you see drawn across a map that connect all the points of equal value. So again, a contour line is an isoline that we will find on topographic maps, often referred to as topo maps. And so each of these lines here are going to be one contour line. And so each contour line is going to show us, again, an increase in elevation. And so some of the additional terminology that you should be familiar with is the contour interval. And this is going to be the difference in elevation between individual contour lines. And so you can see on certain index contours are going to be the ones that are identified. On other maps, or including this map, you can see it as well. It's generally going to be the fifth contour line is going to be a bit wider or a bit darker, and so you can see that as you're going through here. So not only is this one identified at being most likely 8,400 feet, but this line is a bit thicker, a thin, 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 and the fifth line up again is a bit thicker. So these are the index contours. And this will more or less help you to identify different intervals in changes in these isolines. Again, in this case, it is changes in elevation. So this is, again, an image taken from a topo map where you can see changes in elevation. And also keep in mind that when contour lines are farther apart, that means that there is going to be a less intense increase. In this case, that means the hill will literally be not quite as steep as when you get to a location where the lines are going to be very close together. That just means that we're having a very steep increase. And so it's also good to note that you should be able to identify where the high points on this map are. Again, here it looks like we've come to a point. Here it also looks like a point, so it's safe to say that this is going to be the top of a mountain. And we can also see right here, and we'll dive into a little bit more detail about this, but these lines that are going inside of this actually means that this is a depression. So this is going back down. So up, 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 down. You know, breaking it down a little bit more, interpreting how to really read a topographic map. So looking at the index contours, these are the bold contours that are going to help us identify increases or decreases in elevation. And so also what's interesting to note is because you see this divot, this V, this is showing how a stream is going to run. So not only is this important to be able to identify something like this on a map, jumping back up, it looks like you can see that there is a stream kind of running through here. And again, looking at the contours, you can see that that's happening. Here's another great example of how that V kind of divots in there. But you'll need this for a future lab, so keep that in mind. But again, looking at a hill and looking at the elevation, and so this image, again, which you can find in the supplemental reading that I have provided for you in this week's module, goes and explains exactly how to read this again. So the farther the lines are apart, it means that the slope or the increase in elevation is more gentle when compared to lines that are much closer together, as they are indicating a much steeper slope. I mentioned on the previous map again that sometimes you'll see elevation lines with these little divots. This is going to be a depression right on top of a hill. So we are increasing in elevation to 80, 290, 300. And then at 300 again, which means somewhere between these 300s, it's going to be just above 300. So we know the top of this little hill before it goes back down in elevation, again indicated by these little lines, is showing us a depression. So again, keep this in mind. Refer back to the supplemental reading when you are trying to identify what will be this image, as this will be the image on your graded lab. So you definitely want to keep lookout for depressions, looking at where streams might be running, paying attention to those V's, those cutouts, as well as identifying ridges and valleys. And that's pretty much all you're going to need to know. So definitely read through the supplemental reading that I have posted in the lab modules. Read through the supplemental reading that is here in your lab. And yeah, good luck.